So we're going to start with just getting a list of regular AR verbs up on our board. So can someone give me a couple examples of regular AR verbs?
Caminar.
Caminar. Thank you, Ali.
Viajar.
Viajar. Good.
Visitar.
Any more?
Cocinar.
Cocinar. I guess we should translate these while we're at it. What does caminar mean?
To walk.
To walk. Viajar.
To travel.
To travel. Visitar.
To visit.
To visit. Cocinar.
To cook.
To cook. Okay, let's get a few more verbs up here.
Pesar.
Pesar. What does that mean?
To weigh.
To weigh.
Llorar.
Llorar.
Sure.
Cry. Oh, to cry? Yes. Okay. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 6. Let's do 2 more.
Cantar.
Cantar, and what does that mean?
To sing.
Conservar. To conserve.
To conserve. Conservar, to conserve. Okay, so when we're conjugating in the present tense with regular AR verbs, the first step is to completely drop the AR ending. So let's use cantar as our first example here. So the first step is to drop this AR ending. And then what we're going to do is add various different endings depending on who we're talking about. So we have yo, which is I, to, el, ella, and usted, ellos, and nosotros. I, you, he, she, formal you, they, and we. So the ending that we're going to add for each of these is as follows. Yo is just a simple O. Tu is A-S. El, ella, and usted is just a simple A. And ellos is A-M. Nosotros, A-M-O-S. Okay, so for regular cantar, let's go ahead and conjugate this here. Running out of room. How do we conjugate canto for yo, or cantar for yo? Canto. To cantas. Thank you. And L-A-N is dead. That's the easy one. Ellos. Cantan. And ellos or ellas. Cantamos. Good job. Is that pretty straightforward for everyone? Does it make sense for regular ending AR verbs?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and try a couple sentences then. I'm going to go ahead and erase these. Hopefully you have them down in your notes. So our first sentence is going to be, he drives to the market. So our verb in this sentence is, he drives, correct? So let's start with that. How would we contact, okay, first of all, what's the verb to drive? Manejar. So we'll just go ahead and put this up here. And what is the first step to conjugating manejar?
Drop
Drop
the
the
AR.
AR.
Good job. And for L, what do we add?
A.
Ah.
An A.
Maneja.
And we know what market is, mercado, because it's el mercado. We're going to combine that. Go al mercado. Okay, repeat after me. Él maneja al mercado.
Él maneja al mercado.
Good job. So I think the lesson went really well with just the few students that I had assembled from just around the neighborhood and some friends of mine. I think it was easier because I had the board, and so there was definitely a big visual aspect to it. And I always like to make sure that we have vocabulary words and any sort of material that we're working with up on the board before we start a lesson so that students can refer to that and it's not as awkward and they don't feel as put on the spot when it comes time to the call and response part of the lesson. So for the first part, what we did was just made a list of verbs up on the board, and that came from what would have been a vocabulary list from a previous lesson. So everyone already knew the basic AR verbs as kind of the jumping off point to then go into the conjugation. I went with just the simple notes format because I think that that's the best way for students to have the conjugations in their reference. They can always refer back to it, and I think it's also just the most straightforward way rather than trying to go in some roundabout way. I think it's easiest to just put it up on the board, give them the visual aspect, and go through a couple examples. So that's how I formatted this lesson. And that's exactly what I did. I put up the first conjugations, and then we went through conjugating a couple different verbs together, and then had some question sessions so that if there was anything that was unclear about the conjugations, they could go back and ask questions at that time before we then moved on to the sentences, which we did in call and response form. And I think the call and response form is kind of the best way to engage students because it really gets them involved without putting them on the spot. If a student is not as comfortable, it's a group chorus, so they don't have to feel like it's necessarily them alone that are being put on the spot to read through a sentence. But at the same time, it also helps everybody's individual pronunciation because they are working as a group. They hear me say it first, and that's why I like to use the call and response format as kind of a way of engaging students with something that's just usually as boring as conjugating verbs. So that's how I decided to set out the lesson plan. If I were to do it again, I think it would probably be better if we had more of a note set to go off of.